My name is Gary Bontrager, your host of Breaking Barriers podcast. I'm excited to welcome you to another episode. We're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to interview James Harmon. He's a Massey Ferguson enthusiast and has a very expansive knowledge in tractor pulling, is very involved in antique tractor pulling, which is still a very popular piece of the sport, takes us back to the history of our roots and where we started, and kind of bridges that gap from off the farm to some of the things that we're doing with the limited pro stocks and super stocks and things today. So without any further ado, James, thank you for coming down to the Breaking Barriers shop and joining me on this podcast.
Oh, I'm always welcome to do these things because basically it's my pride and joy. And it's some of the things that I've done for many years, and have always wanted the privilege to do more of this kind of stuff.
Right.
This is only going to be the second time I've ever been, or third time, I guess, if you count the one that you watched with Jason.
Right.
But I did one I'll talk about later with the Iowa State Fair.
Okay.
And but yes, I actually enjoy talking about it because that's one of my favorite passions is tractor pulling.
Okay.
Or pulling in general.
Right. Well, let's jump into it. We want a little history and get a little background for you. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what got you associated to tractor pulling.
Well, basically, I grew up around Clarence, Missouri, and how I got into tractor pulling and everything is I was almost basically born into it. My dad was a Massey Ferguson mechanic for a local dealer there, which was Burkhart Brothers. He worked there. He was one of their longer, you would say, mechanics that they had. He worked for them for a little over 35 years.
Okay.
So he come into the basics of about when the 65 Super 90s and all that come in.
Okay.
And then the glorious years of the 1100, 1130 and the 1150 years.
Right.
And progress from there. So, he would go around, help. There would be various pullers from our area there, which we had all branches of pulling going on there. We had guys pulling garden tractors. We had mini rods. We had farm stock. We had super stock. We also had stock pickups. And we had the four-wheel drive pickups. Then a lot of guys got into the two-wheel drive pickups.
Right.
Before you know it, we did a lot of that. And of course, then later, my sister got around with a guy, and then they got into horse pulling.
Oh, okay.
So, and we were from, which I know some of your background too. We were from which we had a 10-mile Amish community.
Right.
So we had a lot of horses in the area.
Right.
So a lot of them guys brought their horses to town, pulled their horses in events. At that time, it was basically we had a wooden thing. We put concrete blocks on for weight of the thing. But they had to go to the local elevator and weigh their horses, come in. Which basically that's what we did with the tractors back in those days too. They went to the elevator or far as weighing in, and then some of them usually was either at a fairgrounds or, at some farmer's place or whatever. But usually most of that was all done right at a weigh scales back in those days. But yeah, I grew up liking it. And then, like I say before, I did it for a few years, and then I got the liking going to various other events like yourself.
Right.
I was into going to demo derbies.
Right.
I was going to stock car races. I was going to pony pulls. I was going to all this stuff. And before you knew it, I was, like I say, basically hooked on it as I got older. So then basically that year, which would have been around 82,
Okay.
of course, with the Carroll farms,
Right.
we followed them because
Right.
it was from the town that we were in.
Right.
And I got to know them, and, I did things for their family.
Right.
Of course, my dad always brought me up, if you wanted money, you go work for it. So I mowed one of Ivan's uncle's lawns
Okay.
to make,
Right.
spending money. So then, I got to know them through that too. And one year, we had another farmer that his name was James Quinley. Well, James Quinley run the majority of his tractors was all Massey tractors.
Right.
So he used to pull back in the 60s and 70s
Okay.
with a 445
Right.
Minneapolis. So Ivan and him they were neighbors, and they used to compete against each other back in the day.
And just for the audience to know, when you're talking about the Carroll family, we're talking about Ivan Carroll and his boys. They
Yes.
had that Cockshet, the Levy Leaper, which we did an episode with.
And that's very true.
And then they came back and they built another one again here.
That's called the South River Savage.
Right, yeah,
Which
later. But
I haven't ever seen it pull, but I've been out to their house a few times when
Right.
I'm down in that area.
but that's who you're referring to when
Yes,
you're talking
that's
about.
who I'm referring to.
Yep.
Plus, I know they didn't ever say anything in their podcast, but I will throw this in. Okay, Ivan's wife, Diet,
Yep.
her dad pulled farm stock 4-wheel drive pickups.
Oh, really?
Yes, 72 or 73 GMC.
Okay.
No, it was a Chevy.
Yeah.
Well, same body
Right,
style and
right.
everything. He brought it right off the farm. He'd go to various truck pulls around. Everybody kind of teased him a little bit. I was still a little knee-high to a grasshopper, remembering those. He'd always have his stock racks on his truck. He'd just leave them on. He had put some big decals on the side. It said Gramps on the side of the truck. And he pulled that for years.
Really?
Which I know back when I worked for them, starting in 1983, it was still on the farm when I left 17 years ago.
So
which
you-
it might still be there today. I don't know.
You had worked for the Carroll family, and then they ended up with the truck that their grandpa pulled, basically.
Yeah, and after he passed away,
Right.
then they
ended up with
EW ended up with that truck, and
Right.
we used it around the farm and
Right.
stuff like that. But I always, enjoyed that part, and just thinking, wow, if I'd drive it to the pasture or checking cows or whatever, I'm like, gosh, this was the pulling truck back in the day, But I always enjoyed that part. And then, like I say, when I was looking in summertime, I had worked for, like I say, for Quinley.
Right.
I had picked up, at that time, I was picking up hay for him
Right.
in the summers.
Right.
Well, then Ivan and him got to talking one time, and then it was a mysterious incident. I actually was going to pick up hay at Quinley's one day, and of course, I'm 16. I think, oh wow, and I got my dad's truck, and
Right.
and it's gravel road, and I ended up sliding off of a bridge, and it's sitting on the bridge, and Diet comes by when I'm walking towards back to town. And then we got to talking, and they're like, well, we're looking for somebody to come work for us as a hard hand, and would you be interested? Well, I was at that time still working for them at Quinley's, and then I had got involved with tractor pulling, being like a track official,
Right.
or
Right.
measuring drawbars.
Right. Being a tech official for.
Yeah. And so that was back in the earlier days. And before you know it, like I say, I got to work for them, and then it was was real interesting. I got, before you know it, I'm getting to know a lot of the pulling part through them.
Right.
I think it was the last part of '83. My dad decided, because he was following some of the Masseys around, and so we decided, well, at that time it was the Tractor Pullers of Missouri, which was an NTPA branch in Missouri.
And so what time would have that been? In the early 80s?
That would have been the early 80s.
Yeah, because I think Iowa, one thing that's interesting, we're of course in southern Iowa, and Missouri and Iowa, actually, a lot of the times the pullers would go back and forth across the state line and pull a lot. So we had similar experiences with the type of pulling that was going on, the things that were happening. So, because I know like the Carroll family would come up to our area as well, and some of our folks would go down there. So, I mean, that was just commonplace. We had similar, in fact, I think in the 70s for a number of years, the Iowa NTPA chapter, or Iowa Pullers Association, and the Missouri Pullers Association did some things together.
Yeah, they did coast sanction.
Yeah.
That's what I was kind of going to lead into. We had what they called, and that was in '83, '84. They had a pull at Kirksville, Missouri.
Right.
Which, that one was an Iowa and Missouri co-sanctioned event at the Speedway there, which that's kind of where I very first saw Jack Simons.
Okay.
With his cockshut, I'm thinking, I thought, well, wow, there's another cockshut out here besides Ivan's. But at that time, it was just that I had only knew of those two. Right. And then before,
you started to learn more.
I started learning more. Right. And of course, that's where my dad had went to help Don Berry with his, at that time he was pulling the 2805.
Okay.
Which they called number one.
Okay.
Which that's serial number one of the 2800 series of Massey. And that's how then we went from there. We went to the Missouri State Fair. We went south to Farmington, St. Genevieve, and on around down the Boot Hills, back to St. Louis, and pulls there in like 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
I took off, and it was.
But that 2805, was that considered like a farm stock, or was that more?
No, at that time, he built it from a farm tractor.
Okay, but it would have been like.
But it was a super stock.
It was a super stock.
It was one of the very first 640 cubic inch.
Okay, and it had the Perkins V8.
It had the Perkins V8.
Yeah.
He had campaigned years before that in the 70s. He campaigned at 1150, which had the 510 cubic inch V8 in it. Right. And he was, he won a lot with that tractor back in the days.
Right.
Because of everybody, there wasn't very many people except for, the Cat.
Right.
With the Oliver or the White, and then the Massey with the V8, or the International with the 1468.
Yeah, and that one didn't get pulled a whole lot.
Not a lot of people pulled those.
No.
There was a few people, but most of those guys, they just couldn't get
that motor disc didn't have any torque. It would fall on its face pretty quick once you got under the RPMs.
Yes.
It just didn't pull the way the Perkins and the Cat did.
But yeah, he, like I say, he was well known on the national circuit back in the 70s. He won a lot of championships.
Right.
He pulled in Louisville. He pulled in like Indy Super Pull and various other big Grand National pins. He had one of the very only big Masseys at that time, like I say, the 2805.
Right.
Which, a little bit more background about that. That tractor was kind of an experimental tractor at that time.
Okay.
Like I say, it was a 2800. So then they changed it after a while, after they got the experiments all done. That tractor stayed in Kansas City in the Massey training grounds, which my dad got familiar with that because he was a Massey mechanic.
Right.
He went to the training schools in Kansas City a lot. So he had got familiar with that tractor. Right. And like I say, everybody always says, well, Massey give Don that tractor. No, Don bought that tractor for like $20,000.
Right.
It was changed after the experimental to a 2805 series. So they changed that tractor immediately after he bought it in Kansas City, brought it back, stripped it all down, made it into a pulling tractor. It never went anywhere except for testing grounds and a few demonstrations on farms. So that tractor basically has been a pulling tractor most of its life.
Right. Do you know where that tractor's at today?
It's actually in Maryland.
Okay.
A guy calls it Red Resurrection in
I think I've seen that thing out there on some places before.
It's basically not, I don't think it's running as much anymore.
Right.
I know the Coons had it. The Coons sold it. And then
you're
the Coons
talking about Coons implement.
Danny Coons.
Danny Coons over in Illinois.
And his
Arthur,
boy.
Illinois. Yep.
So
they actually pulled that tractor as well at one time?
Yes.
Okay.
They bought the tractor after Don quit pulling. The Coons implement bought that tractor from him.
Okay.
So they pulled it, and then, like I say,
they've got quite a storied history of tractor
yes,
pulling
they do.
there too, because they were still are a prominent Massey dealership and have done a lot.
And they got their nice new Trailblazer.
Right, yeah.
And actually, if I remember right, the guy that owns it still in Maryland has the guy in Illinois that does Coons's work on it, does some of the work on that tractor system.
Okay, yeah. Interesting.
And it went to, like I say, it went from Coons back to around down to Boot Hill, down Cape Girardeau, Missouri, to a couple guys, and then it went to other hands, and then Coons bought it back, revived it a little bit, and then it looks like it does today.
Yeah, I got you. Interesting. It's just fun to hear where the stories of some of those go, because in those days, not a lot of tractors came right off the implement lot and made it out into the pulling circuit, because just the price of it all. That usually it was used and maybe needed some work, and then they kind of converted it. But there are some of those out there like that. But that's very interesting. What from the Carroll family then? You also, just to follow up on that, you went with them to a lot of tractor pulls probably when they were pulling and you were working for them?
I actually didn't go as much.
Okay.
Because as you heard in their podcast, somebody had to stay at the farm and work while they all went.
Right. And
most of the time I was the one taking care of the cattle or the other livestock or whatever needed done so they could go pulling in the summer. They could always leave me with the farm and do things. And like Dean had said, or in the thing, they'd go to the pull and they'd be back, they'd be back the next morning.
Right.
So it wasn't like I was there weeks upon weeks by myself.
Right.
But, usually there was
chores.
One of the boys stayed with me. But then when it got a few more years on, I did get to go. I know Dean and I went to the Illinois State Fair once. We took the RV and him and I went. We pulled over there and I come back. So that was the very first time I'd ever been to the Illinois State Fair.
Right.
And I always wanted to go. And, when he asked me, hey, you want to go? I'm like, yeah, I'll go home, pack my stuff. When do you want me here? And I did the same thing when we went to the Iowa State Fair. I think that same year, him and I went and pulled. And basically all I did was throw weights, help adjust the drawbars and all that stuff. But
fun times though, for
sure. But it always was a great deal to work for those folks. And that's where basically some of my urge to want to pull come from. I never had a tractor until I think it was 1990, I bought my very first tractor.
And that's what I was going to ask you, is when you started pulling yourself.
So at that time, of course, you may have seen at their house, they used to have a tremendous cockpit collection.
Right.
So that's what I started out with. I wanted to collect Massey tractors. So I started going to farm sales. Me and my dad. I bought my first tractor in 1990.
Okay.
I gave it $725 for it, which was a 1954 Massey Harris 44 Special.
Okay.
At that time, we didn't have a trailer or nothing. Dad goes, well, how are we going to get home? I said, I'm going to drive it home. That was 35 miles. I drove it. I was proud as joy, you know, just a brand new piece of something new to me. And man, I was up there. Well, that turned my kick on that because of that part of buying my first tractor. And before you know it, I bought another tractor. Before I got done, I had 9 tractors altogether.
Okay.
So I had just started that, and it was just like, Dad's like, okay, what are we going to do with all these tractors?
Right.
Are you going to start restoring them, or what are we going to do with them? Of course, at that time, like I said a while ago, Dad had been with the Quinley guy.
Right.
And he had, still in the barn, the old 445. Well, Dad wanted to buy it so many times. And finally, one day, Dad bought that tractor from him. And then we had it, and we just sat it there because he was thinking about building a puller at that time. So we just bought that one to start with. So then we turned around, and I was looking on Marketplace one day, and this would have been about middle part of 93.
Okay.
And that's when my pulling days, because I had pulled the show tractors at stock.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I wanted this tractor because it was a 44 with wide front end, and I just saw the pictures of it. Well, before I was able to work out a deal with the guy, the Mississippi had flooded.
Yep.
In Meyer, Illinois. That's where the tractor was.
93. That was 93.
That was flooded of 93. And so finally, after the water receded, the guy decided he'd go ahead and sell it to me. I gave $250 for the tractor sight unseen. Okay, one Saturday we were like, okay, we borrowed a trailer. We're going to go over there and get it. We get there. Little did I know that the guy had already had this tore down before the flood.
Oh, no.
And that's basically how the pulling come in to building the pulling tractor was. When we got there, the guy's like, this tractor's in 5-gallon buckets.
Oh, my
I'll take you out to the machine shed and I'll show you. So we walked out there. Of course, you know, I done had my mind set. I wanted this tractor.
Right.
Because I'd never had a wide front end Massey Harris.
Yeah, but it had never been pulled before necessarily.
No, it was just an old farm tractor.
And you were going to build a pulling tractor with
Well, at that time, I was going to restore it to make a nice wide front end tractor out of it. But we got there, like I say, we walked in the shed, and the block is plumb full of sand.
Oh, my goodness.
And my dad's like, okay, now what are you going to do? You got a piece of junk here.
Yeah, it's rusty.
You got the head's full of sand, the block's full of sand. Your rods and your pistons are all in 5-gallon buckets here. And you got parts of the tractor in buckets. And I'm like, I don't care. I want the tractor.
Right.
So I worked out the deal, like say $250. I paid the guy for the tractor. I was happy as a clam, you know what? Even though I got a bunch of junk.
Right.
I'm thinking, gosh, this is going to take a lot to put this tractor together. So on the way home, my dad and I had been going to stock car races.
Right.
Okay, that was one of my minds I wanted to do. Because a buddy of mine drove bomber cars.
Right. Right.
At the speedway, and I'm like, Dad. So the next week, his dad had passed away, so they sold off all their racing stuff.
Oh.
And
your buddy's father.
And his dad had passed away, and he was a mechanic, and they sold their bombers at this auction. And so I'm sat in there, I'm about determined I'm going to buy this car. So we come to time to bid on the car. I bid a couple times. My dad pulls me away. He goes, "You know that tractor you just bought there a couple weeks ago?" He said, "I would rather you invest money in that and build a pulling tractor out of that versus buying this old beat up race car."
Right.
And we sink ungodly amount of money into that, and somebody get aggravated at you and flip you and turn one, and here we're going to start over the new car.
Right.
He said, "At least with my background," he said, "I wouldn't mind working on the car with you." But he says, "I think you'd have better investment by taking this old tractor that you just bought and building a pulling tractor out of it.
Right.
And that way we both could enjoy the sport of pulling."
Time.
So
that's an interesting feat or fact just to talk about too. I mean, if you listen to any of my stuff, it's one of the reasons I got into tractor pulling is something to do with my son. And you hear that story over and over.
And so that's basically how I got into the part of pulling. And, my dad, and he would come out to Carroll's and visit.
Right.
And of course, Dean and him at one time, Dean always wanted to build because the V8s were so, and he was getting pointers off of Dad on how to build a V8 Perkins.
Right.
Of course, they were cockshut, and they would have to went with a cat, but they, Dad, he always give you the highlights from from the previous deals of working for Barry's and all that. So, like I say, we went ahead and we started cleaning the tractor up, cleaning all the. Dad's like, "Well, we got this block.
Right.
It's got sand in it. We're not going to go back stock.
Right. Time to do some work.
We're gonna take this when we get it all cleaned up." I had a friend, which his name was Richard Waldron.
Right.
He pulled tri-state pickups.
Okay.
So he owned a machine shop.
Right.
And pulled pickups.
Right.
Which him and Alan and Keith Marsh, which were from Macon, Missouri, they pulled tri-state.
There's still a lot of pullers out of Macon, Missouri area.
And that's why I say there still is today.
Yeah.
We got still there. We got the Fitzsimmonses.
Yep.
We got, like I say, the Claypools.
Right.
Who pulls Outlaw.
Right.
And then we got Chuck Lee, which pulls Excalibur or Outlaw. We got Ivan and the boys.
Right.
And then, there's others. We got, and this name is going to be added in because he was kind of influencing to get the design for my pulling engine.
Oh, okay.
Which was Duke Harrington.
Oh, okay.
Josh and Duke Harrington pulled classics.
Okay.
They pulled 88 Olivers.
Yes.
But then they went on up. They're pulling Pro Stock and Super Stock now.
Okay.
So they used to pull with Twin States.
Right.
And that, but they pull in, I think, Nebraska pullers now.
I gotcha.
But they actually had some blueprints that Duke was building big 88 Oliver engines for pullers for the classic guys.
Right.
So my dad and him, like I say, become good friends. And he goes, "Well, I got these blueprints." He said, "I got a guy that I'm building a Massey for. I'll let you have the blueprints." He said, "You just take them down to Richard and he'll know what to do." Because Richard was doing the Oliver.
The machine work.
He was doing the Waukesha's for Duke. So we took it down there and he's like, "Yeah." He says, "What size do you want?" Well, at that time, we had the blueprints. but he goes, that's going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Right.
So this happened, and it's an thing how it happened, but we was at a farm sale once, kind of like Ivan's deal with the turbo.
Right.
Okay, we was at a farm sale, and here's this guy. He's got a set of, they were experimental, international pistons.
Right.
I mean, they were almost 5-inch.
Right.
I'm like, okay.
We can fit those in
We
there.
can put those in there. It was brand new, had rings.
Right.
And everything on them. My dad goes, why don't we just buy these? He said it's going to be a little bit bigger than what the blueprints are, but we're not putting a stroker.
Right.
We're not putting a stroke crank in it or whatever.
Right.
So we did that. I bought them. I think we give $75, $80 for
Set of,
four. It was a half a set because
Right.
somebody had used half of them.
Right.
And so we took them up to Richard, and he's like, yeah. He said, I think we can do these. He said, all we got to do is I'll machine it out. He said, we'll get some tubing, make some cylinder walls, put them in the block.
So these were pistons that came out of the V8 that International had.
It would have come out of a bigger, it was more out of the International V8 truck.
Ah, gotcha.
It was an experimental
Right,
big
right,
international truck.
Right. I gotcha.
So I used those pistons. Matter of fact, I just got through pulling one out the other day because that engine, we built it in, like I say, 93.
Right.
I started pulling the tractor in 94. And the engine finally gave up the ghost last year.
So you're finally tearing it apart.
Dad had rebuilt it and stuff, but it finally got where that block was. I was putting more water in the crankcase than I was actually, and I was having to change the oil after every done.
Because it was leaking out.
I pulled that engine out, and I'm in the process of, I got a guy down called Hat's Performance down in St. Francisville, Missouri.
Gotcha.
It's right over the border.
Right.
And he told me he could build me one, which he misunderstood what I was talking about because he thought I still had the cast block.
Oh.
And with the sleeves, he said, well, just bring me a block and I'll bore them out for you and you'll get the pistons in. But then when I showed him the piston, he goes like, oh no, that's going to be a wintertime project.
Yeah.
So sometime this winter, maybe I'll go and
get that thing rebuilt.
If my pocketbook allows it.
So what tractor did you put that motor in then? That 44 with a wide front?
Actually, we put it in the 44 with the wide front.
And what's it in now?
It's still in that tractor.
It is. And is this the replica?
This is a replica of the tractor right here.
Okay. Because I know you still pull antiques with it.
Yes.
Right.
We still pull antiques with it. At that time, when we first built it, though, we started out with 15.5 tires, cuts.
Yep.
Luckily, the guy I talked about a while ago, Duke Harrington, gave me a set.
Right.
And it progressed from there, which on the second year, which I know you're familiar with, the Winter Nationals at Sigourney.
Right.
Okay, I thought, well, my lands, I got to go to Sigourney.
Right.
I got to go to Sigourney. I went there, and there was like 120 of us in the class. I got, I think, 55th.
Okay.
So I felt, by gosh, it's second year out for this tractor.
Right.
I'm doing good.
Your top half, or
I'm in the top half
of the.
But at least.
And that's quite a tractor pull too. And I know you're where you're at today is you do a lot with antique tractor pulling, and we'll get to that later. But Sigourney, Iowa puts on quite a it's a 2-day show, right?
Yes,
it
is actually a 2-day. And then, of course,
right.
I stopped in and seen you this year at Sigourney on my way back from doing my pull the day before and we'll get into that a little bit later. And we visited a little bit.
Right.
But yes, we pulled that tractor for quite a few years. Then my dad, like I said, with the 445, he got it running. And we pulled had a car trailer at that
Right.
time, so we pulled the Massey, and then we bought another car trailer, and he pulled his, and then we decided to get a gooseneck, and then we twinned them to
Okay.
pulls. So we both went to the pulls.
Right.
He mainly pulled against me.
So when you first started pulling though in the 90s, you were not running like with the NTPA or those chapters.
No,
Any of those?
I was strictly still pulling
Antique.
classic and antiques.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, classics is basically a glorified, almost like a super stock antique tractor.
Okay.
At that time, that's what I was pulling,
Right.
the classics,
Right.
which was anywhere from 1950 to like 40, 48 or so, which this tractor is a 1948 model.
Okay. Okay.
So at that time I was in the classics, and so we just basically ran it on pump gas.
Right. Right.
But then the more we got to talking, and of course Dean and Ivan was giving me pointers. Hey, you got to do this, got to do this.
Right.
You can put additives with your fuel and still not worry about getting checked or whatever.
Right,
So
right.
we started doing a lot of that.
Right.
And before you know it, it was basically I was gaining more power with the octane boosters and all that with my gas. And then Ivan and them was like, well, another step you could go is we had an airport right 11 miles in Macon, had an airport. He said, you can go there and buy aviation gas. You can run that in that tractor. So I started running that. It took a lot of tweaking the carburetor and everything. So after a few years, I kind of like, not bringing up bad memories, but I kind of like you, I went through a divorce.
Yep.
I moved to Iowa.
Okay.
So I sold off my Massey collection.
Oh, okay.
And my dad goes, you're not selling that tractor, are you? I said, I tell you what, Dad, give me $50 and you can have the tractor. You did all the work on it. You can have the tractor. I'll come down a few weekends a year and I'll go with you pulling.
Right.
And you can have the tractor. And it was that way when I moved up here. I would come down a few times in the summer, and I'd go to pulls with him and stuff. And then after I got through my divorce and everything, and I started coming down more and more and more. But he would take that tractor and his Moline.
Okay.
But at that time, he was into anything. He had an M Farmall he pulled.
Okay.
He had an A John Deere he pulled.
Oh my goodness.
He pulled the Massey.
Right.
He also pulled the Moline.
Okay.
So the guy that my sister was with that pulled horses, he'd come along.
And he'd pull the tractor too.
He'd pull the tractors as well.
Right.
Then he got into he bought an H, and so he'd bring his H along, but he'd still pull Dad's tractors and help. And then before you know it, my sister started wanting to do it. Well, she never would. She was always afraid of it.
Right.
Afraid of it. She'd just basically drive it around the yard. She never got into it for the longest time. So in 2013, I'm sorry if I'm jumping way ahead.
No, you're fine.
But in 2013, my dad passed away.
Okay.
Okay, I'm like, gosh, my pulling days are over,
Right.
Of course, I was still going to NTPA pulls as a spectator or helping wherever. So it was like, what are we going to do? Then my sister and I, and my other sister, my half sister, and his second wife's kids.
Right.
We all had to take and Dad's farm and,
Or disperse it.
disperse his estate.
Right.
Which Dad had bought some of his farm. If I back up a little bit. See, Dad, like I say, he worked for Massey for so many years. The day they closed, he didn't know what he was going to do the next day.
Right.
Okay, so there's all these farmers that was at the auction that they sold the dealership out. And this one guy by the name of Lewis Thompson and Winston Simpson. They're there like, where are we going to get our stuff worked on?
Right.
Where are we going to get our stuff worked on? Now, we have no Massey dealer in town.
Right.
You got to drive 50 to 60 miles to another Massey dealer. And at that time, they were getting close to being AGCO.
Right.
So, at that time, they didn't know whether there was going to be a dealer or not.
Right.
Which some of those dealers are still there.
Right.
But those guys went around to, I think there was 35 or 40 fellow Massey farmers at the dealership sale. They went around to him and said, we want to keep Mr. Harmon in business. Will you give us $200 to $300 and we'll keep him in business? We'll buy some of these specialty tools. We'll buy one of their service trucks.
Right.
And everything. And we'll all donate it to him. And during the sale, my dad didn't know nothing about it. Because he was helping with the auction, and stuff. And after the sale, Lewis and Winston come up to him and says, you know what? You're working for us now. This we bought for you. We bought this for you. We bought this for you. That service truck sitting right there, you own that now. We're going to set a fee of $35 to $40 an hour. You get 50% of it until each farmer's money is paid off. Then you can start changing your own rate. Well, at that time, that was a fair price. That was a fair price. Dad did that until he passed away.
What year was that? Do you know what year that happened?
That would have been.
That was in the 80s, wasn't it?
It would have been in the 80s.
Yeah, because that's when that AGCO change went. I mean, we can both sit here and cry about all the things we've seen happen in agriculture because it's not just International and Massey. You got Oliver. There's many of those that just, if you'd know what we know today, you probably could figure out a way to keep those together.
Well, and that's kind of the way it was, which, you're from we call it the other red.
Right.
Okay, so at that time, when Dad and them closed the dealer, the Burkhart boy or brother had closed. Well, the other one had passed away, which I wrote an article in one of my Clipper magazines about that dealership.
I'm just going to do a plug on this now. So there's this Massey magazine that comes out, and I believe it's a bi-monthly subscription, 6 times a year. And so James is an author in there some. I mean, on the back here, we're going to jump right ahead since we got the magazine, and we'll come back to this. So if you're really interested in the history of Massey Harris, this would be a good place for it. On the back, this is a tractor. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Being we've moved ahead to this tractor, a bunch of us Massey folks, we have through the NATPA, which is the National Antique Tractor Pullers, we have through, which I don't know, I think I give you his name, Brian Lively.
Yep.
And which you may get parts or stuff from... There's another guy that's with him from Kansas City.
Okay.
And he sells pulling hubs.
Oh, gotcha.
It's called Cat Brothers.
Yes.
But
sell a lot of parts for.
But they sell a lot of pulling parts for antiques, classics, pro stocks and stuff. Mainly wheels, hubs, and now they're going into making tubular axles to lighten them up. And machining gears and stuff for everybody. But we have a group of guys, we all put this tractor together, which I'll go ahead and jump to this one first.
Let's do it.
This one was actually the tractor before the Massey.
Okay.
They've done tractors for many years. All of us as pullers donate parts, labor, transportation, or money,
Right.
and various pullers, say like for the instance of this international right here,
Right.
the demonstrator.
And this
Okay.
was based off of a 460.
This
that
is a
you
460.
built. And the other thing I want to point out while we're doing that is, so you're raising money for St. Jude's. Is that correct?
It was back when this
one
done,
was done,
and
okay.
when the Massey was done.
But you find a cause that you donate.
We find a cause for children that are going through cancer or struggling, that are crippled,
Right.
and we
Some
want
type of disability or illness.
yes, because us pullers, we want to give back something
Right.
to help other people.
So this is in
This
reference
tractor-
to the 460 Farmall.
yes,
And then this one back here, of course,
that's
a,
the Massey
44
there.
or a 444.
That's a 444.
Yeah. So
This here was a 460 that had had the red diamond engine in it,
right.
and it was a demonstrator tractor, so that's why we called it the Demonstrator.
Right.
That was given away. It was made in the years 2021 and 2022.
Okay. We want to thank Bob Parks with Custom Tire Cutting and the Parks Pullers for supporting the Breaking Barriers podcast. Their product speaks for itself. It has helped us get many wins, as well as many other pullers out there. Check them out and try their product. You will not be disappointed. Thanks again for your support at Breaking Barriers podcast. That's when that tractor was made and then donated, and the proceeds went to St. Jude's.
How that works, and it worked with this one. It works with the new Ford that's come out this year.
Okay.
They have I think it's forget which one it is, but it's got an experimental Ford engine in it.
Okay.
I didn't bring a picture of it, but
That's fine.
still,
That's fine.
anybody can find it on the natpa.com, or if you go to Brian Lively, which is with the Hook magazine,
Right.
He's got it on Facebook and everything.
Yeah. And what's
So-
the cause that you're raising money for this year? Do you know?
This year and last year. Last year they had a case.
Okay.
They built a case. I think it was 800.
Okay.
This year, like I say, is the Ford.
But what's the cause?
The cause is still St. Jude's,
Okay.
and we now give to Shriners Hospital also.
Oh, okay.
So both
you're split-
hospitals,
are getting some money.
we build the tractor. Okay, each one of us do a part
Right.
that want to get involved in it. I haven't got involved in the Ford,
Yep.
but I'll get involved in it with doing kind of like podcast,
Right,
throwing in
right,
points here
right.
on my
Promoting
own page
it,
and
right.
promoting the tractor and stuff. But what we do is we build this tractor. We take it around to various pulls throughout the United States. Okay, say like if this international,
Right.
you would have it maybe a week. You would take it to pulls.
Right.
You would sell chances on this tractor for $25 for this
Right.
$30,000 to $40,000 tractor.
Right. And then at the end,
At
you
the end of
draw.
at that time, they were Tunica, Mississippi, was
Okay.
which is usually November,
Okay.
December. In the winter,
Right.
we do a pull in Tunica. Well, this year and last year, they've switched it. Now it's going to be, it's either February or March. I'm not remember which month, but it's in Kentucky
Okay.
at Twin Pines.
Oh, I got you.
So the tractor will go around to various pulls, and you sell chances on that tractor. Okay, that $25 chance
Right.
gets thrown into like a raffle.
Right.
So you may have a big 55-gallon drum full of tickets.
Right.
One lucky winner is going to win that tractor. Okay, so at the end, when it's pulled that day, and throughout the pulls throughout the year,
Right.
okay, take like this tractor. I visually pulled this tractor,
Okay.
the Demonstrator.
Right.
Me and get it. get into that, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little
Right,
bit on that.
that's fine. Well, we're talking about this,
but
so.
a buddy and me have started what we call the Iowa Antique Tractor Pullers.
Gotcha.
Before we started the association, he put on a pull. He had me, that's where we got our taste of promoting a pull.
Right.
Which I'd already, and I'll talk about that later,
Right.
I'd already promoted pulls myself.
Right.
So we was able to get the demonstrator to pull at Guthrie Center, Iowa.
Oh, okay.
It happened to be it was in Illinois. One of the guys had it, and it had a week that it was available. So my buddy went to Illinois and picked the tractor up.
Brought it back.
We brought it to Guthrie Center. We put it on display
Right.
down there at the fair.
Right.
It was at the Guthrie County
Yep.
Fair. Okay, so we let it sit there and we sold chances.
Right.
The night before we had the antique pull, I think it's the Western Division, like ECI.
Yep. Yep.
It's
with the Outlaws or no PPL.
well, no, they're with their own over there, kind of
Oh,
like,
I got you.
but they're like the Western, but they're
Right.
pro stocks.
I got you.
So
Okay.
they let us bring the tractor out and try to sell
Right.
chances. Well, that wasn't enough. I'm like, before the pull, I got to pull this right out in front of everybody.
Right.
I made a fool out of myself. But somebody during the fair, we had it sitting out at the main gate. Somebody had stole the alcohol out of it.
Oh, no.
I got going and I was doing good, and all of a sudden it fell on his face, because
Once it burned the alcohol out that was in the system.
because it was running off of like Cam 2, the
Right,
like
right.
the high, not the super high methanol, but it was
Right,
the Cam 2,
right.
like they use in race cars. and
Right.
stuff. So we was actually setting the sled for the pull, so
Right.
they wanted something to
Right.
pull a sled. So I pulled it one pass, like I say, and then you run out of fuel about halfway. My buddy, I'm thinking, God, how could this tractor just run out of gas? I'm sitting there cranking it. I'm hollering for Randy, and Randy comes up there and goes, "You got the fuel pump on?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes up and he pops it, kind of like Dean's story,
Right.
He opens it up and it's bone dry. I'm like, "Where'd the gas go?" He goes, "Go to the truck." He said, "The truck's down there at the 300-foot mark. Go down there and get it." So I run down there. Instead of getting a 2.5-gallon can, I run down and grab the 5-gallon can. I'm trying to run down there carrying this gas can.
Nobody cares.
And all these people are stopping and wanting to talk to me. And he's like, "We got to get down there. The show's got to start." So he made a pass with it. Then I made another pass with it. And we sold tickets that night.
Right.
And then the next day was the classic and antique pull. So I pulled it in the what we got there is more like a super.
Right.
Because this one was for a Division 5 tractor, which is 12 mile an hour.
Okay.
So it was made for speed. So this tractor was one of the ones that they made the bigger speed.
Do you know how
tractors.
much money you guys have raised so far?
I really don't. But
Okay. Well, I'm just curious. For the audience's sake, I would encourage them to go out and find the information on it. They can buy tickets, I'm sure, contact you if they need to.
They could contact me. But like I say, Brian Lively would be more than happy to give you all the information. And but yeah, I know, for instance, this tractor. Of course, it was a 2-year build.
Right.
That tractor. What do you think it brought? What do you think it made?
I don't know if you made enough to cover your cost in it or not. 40,000?
Probably 3 times that.
Really?
As far as tickets, pullers donating their wings back that pulled this tractor, 2 Shriners to St. Jude's. That was almost $120,000 tractor.
Really? So it raises a lot of money for it. And that's something I've noticed even with some of the tractor pulls. A lot of them are put on, the proceeds or the profits out of those are going to things like this. So it's interesting how much money gets given back to charity.
But this one, the Massey back here.
Yeah. Do you know what that was?
I helped with this tractor.
Right.
The chrome and everything was found by me.
Okay.
Some of the guys, we had a guy in Missouri donated the chassis. We had a guy that bought the engine out east. This tractor was for a top cut division.
Oh, okay.
This one was for a cut division.
Right.
The top cuts are basically a regular tire cut.
Right.
Not V cuts like yours.
Right. They're not a
These
double
will
cut.
have
They're
the
just
V-cuts
they're just a single cut, but the lugs are down shorter.
Sharp
and
yeah.
So
good half inch. But this tractor, everything donated, and the tractor, I think this one was just a share under $100,000. This was a 1-year build. This tractor right here.
That's what you made on the tractor, gross?
That's what we donated
out of that tractor. And you don't know what it cost to build it, though.
We built it ourselves.
So it was all donation.
All donated.
So even with this one was a full donation.
A full donation.
So when you're giving $120,000 or $100,000, you're giving all of that.
We're giving 100% of it right back to those guys.
That's incredible.
And with this tractor, like I say, I campaigned this. Believe it or not, I pulled this one in Sigourney.
Oh, did you?
I pulled this tractor in Sigourney.
Excellent. So let's move to you promoting tractor pulls. Let's talk about that. Just keep things moving for time's sake. There's no way we can talk about all of it.
I know
you're a Massey historian, so we can go into, in fact, just for those that, if you're looking for parts and information, James here can probably hook you up because you've connected me with a lot of people. But when you started promoting pulls, what was some of your first experiences? And I don't need all the details necessarily on what the events were, because now you've gotten to where you're part of an organization and you're doing it a little differently.
But actually, how I come into the promotion part was my dad already had promoted pulls.
Right.
He had a pull in our hometown. Like I say, when my sisters and I, after he passed away, we had his sale. I didn't, at that time I didn't think, I was interested in pulling anymore.
Right.
So we sold all of his pullers off at auction.
Okay.
At his estate auction. So I knew actually my dad's former Massey dealer bought the Massey.
Right.
A friend of mine had bought the Moline. A friend of mine bought the Farmall M. And another guy bought the John Deere.
Okay.
So a few weeks later, and we had kept one of Dad's completely restored, nice 44s.
Right.
Because we wanted something to keep.
Right, as a family heirloom.
And because Dad's farm was right up the street from where my sister and the guy that pulled the horses.
Right.
So we wanted to keep one in the machine shed over there just to remember my dad by. A few weeks later, the dealer calls me up and he goes, "You know what?" He says, "I bought that for my grandson, but he says, I don't think the grandson really wants to get into pulling. Would you guys be interested in swapping tractors? I take the restored tractor and you pay me a little bit more for the other tractor." I said, "Well, how much more you want?"
Right.
He said, "Well, it's like $800. I said, "By gosh, I'll take you up on that offer. You come to and get the restored one and bring the other one back."
Right.
So we had the Massey back. So I'm like, well, I got to be able to pull something.
Right.
So like I say, in that year, like I say, Dad died it was like March or April.
Okay.
So, and he'd always been promoting pulls.
Right.
So he always had to pull the same time as our homecoming,
Okay.
which Dad had. They usually had a tractor show on Saturday, and the last day of the homecoming, they'd go out to the lake and they'd pull tractors. So my sister said, well, we need to keep up Dad's heritage, of promoting this pull.
Right.
And I'm like, well, we might as well. I got the tractor back,
Right.
So I started pulling again. And so that's how basically I got into promoting pulls, was taking on Dad's pull year after year. This one would, like say, he died in 13. So this past year, I had the privilege to move it to the county fair, because we give all the proceeds from Dad's pull in his memory to FFA kids going on into ag schools.
Right.
We do that in honor of my dad. So that's how we get our scholarship money, is the majority of that money after we clear, with our bills and everything, what's left over, we contribute out. Since 13, I think we've done 12 or 13 different kids.
Oh, wow. Given scholarships to. Interesting.
And then
that's kind of where you started promoting this.
And that's where I started promoting pulls, was through that.
And then you still do that one.
And I still do that one yearly.
Yep.
And then, like I was saying, a buddy of mine, we finally one day, because I would pull his internationals in the winter on the national circuit. He had a Super H and another Super H. He had one on Top Cut division, and he had one in the speed division.
Right.
I would pull some. Him and his girlfriend had the two tractors, and she didn't like to pull much, so she'd always have me go with them. So I would, like Sigourney, I'd go to Lincoln, Nebraska, and pull indoors in the winter, and we'd go to various places, and pull. And then Waterloo, we used to have big pulls there.
Right.
And that's where I really got into helping the national guys.
Okay.
Through the national circuit, because a friend of mine by the name of Jody Barber, I grew up with him, pulling against him with his 44.
Okay.
Which today, his wife pulls. It's a real nice 44. It's real cream color. It's called the Chosen One.
Okay.
She pulls that on the national circuit. He's got 460s and 560s he pulls now.
Okay.
So he pulls almost, they're almost like super stocks.
Right.
That he pulls in the fast divisions.
Right.
So that's where I got involved. Is ever since then, I've always had a connection with Jody, and then with his wife becoming a part of Sigourney. Right. I would go to Sigourney and help. I'd go to Waterloo and help. So I got hooked up with them. So then the buddy of mine that I pulled with in the winter, we decided we wanted to do something in the summer. So he pulled with what they called the Central Iowa Antique Tractor Pullers. Okay. Which is ICAPs, what they call it. Right. So I'd go over there in the summer, and I'd pull there. Well, I got to officiate in their pulls. I'd be a flagman for them, because they'd always ask for volunteers, which you know how that is a lot of, even with the promoters part, if you don't have volunteers to help you, you're doing a lot of it yourself. Right. So I did that. And one day this guy come to me we were at Dedham, Iowa. And this guy come to me and goes, you know what? The Iowa State Fair hasn't had a pull since 2017.
Antique tractor pull.
Antique pulls.
Right.
Of course, they hadn't had anything
Right.
until the Outlaws got in the new arena
Right.
there.
Right.
So at first, the Outlaws were the only thing that could be in there.
Right.
So he asked me one day, he goes, I dare you to go to the Iowa State Fair and see if you can get an antique tractor pull there. You know what? With my experience of being around as a promoter
Right.
and working with various things,
Right.
I knew of the Outlaws
Right.
because Ivan and them pulled the
Right,
Outlaws
right.
and everything too. So one day, I just out of the blue, I get a hold of Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
He goes, what do you need? I said, somebody dared me to put on an antique tractor pull at the Iowa State Fair. What will it take to get it in the Iowa State Fair? He goes, I'm going to give you a day. I'm going to make an appointment. You and your buddy come. You bring who all you want. He met us there. We sat down with Frank Roby.
Okay.
Of course, at that time, Jeremy Nelson,
Right.
or is that his name?
No,
No.
it's not Jeremy, but I know who you're talking. Dave, I think it is. Is it
Dave Nelson,
Dave
yeah.
Nelson.
But I'm talking Jeremy was the president.
Oh,
I can't think of his
gotcha.
last name. I got
don't
their
know who
their
you're
names
talking-
back.
Yeah, I don't know who you're
But
talking
still, we all sat down in there, and Dave introduced us. And he goes, these guys want to put on an antique tractor pull at the fair. You think it's something you guys would be interested in? So we talked there probably an hour and
Right.
a half. He goes, well, with his guidance, he thought he could put us on a pretty good show. So a few weeks later, Dave calls us, says, you got another meeting down there. This time, make a budget and show how much you would like to have from the
Right.
fair. So we did that. We went in there. Of course, me, I'm thinking, well, of course, I was taking guidance from
Right.
Mr. Nelson. Of course, we're thinking, if we're going to have to do all this and raise the money, being it's the first time out,
Right.
we're going to have a lot of money.
Right.
So we shot them a price. They're like, holy smokes, we don't think for an antique pull, we just couldn't do that. We could do that for an outlaw pull.
Right.
And finally we said, well, what would you give us? Of course, I won't tell you what
Right. No,
what we got hired for, but we come up with a price. And they go, well, what day would you like to have it at the fair? Well, we kind of wanted it either the day before the outlaw or the day after. Well, there was already stuff at that year. It was when they was allowing other events in there besides the outlaws. So, which was 2 years ago.
Okay.
This past year, ours got rained out. And that was a sad deal to sit there and watch. And I will say this much. We went down 3 days before the fair, got the track prep, got everything ready to go. The night before the pull, it started raining in the middle of the night. I had to go to the radio interview.
Right.
I walked back and it started pouring. Right after I'd gotten done with the radio interview, I'm walking across the track and it's just like the old clay. I've got 3 foot on my shoes,
Right.
And we're like, gosh, we're never going to get this off.
Right.
And finally, Frank and the other lady come down and says, well, we got to call this off.
Right.
But it's sad as a promoter to sit there, and we got guys already in the pits that had been there the night before.
Right.
we got guys coming in from Illinois, Minnesota, Nebraska, and southern Missouri, and they're all on their road to get there because the pool's at 10 o'clock.
Right.
And you got to call all these people and say the pool's canceled. You're sitting there like, gosh, do we just bite off more than we can chew?
Was this the first year?
No, that was last year.
That was last year.
The first year was a tremendous success.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because you've done this a number of years, and then this year...
This is our second year.
But you didn't get to pull the summer of 25, or did you?
Summer of 25, we did not have a pull there.
Got rained out, right? Because I ended up going up for that show, and I know we were even wondering if we were going to get to run.
But that's where a lot of my stuff is anymore, is due to all that. Is I do it mainly as a part of my heritage,
right,
to keep the sport of truck and tractor pulling
right.
alive. I know I'm in the lower class,
right,
but I still have as much fun there
right.
as if you were
right.
sitting on your big super or,
yeah, well, light
or pro
limited.
stock, you know.
Right. So a couple of things you promoted. You also talked a little bit about starting another association, and what's the name of that?
That is, like I say, that's basically what we use, because we had to have an association
right.
name for the Iowa State Fair.
Right.
So we call that the Iowa Antique Tractor Pullers.
Okay.
And
what do you promote beyond the state fair with that?
Well,
is that it?
That's it right now.
Okay.
But we're thinking, if we had somebody say, hey, we wanted you to come do a
right,
county fair,
right.
we're thinking, we could expand.
Right.
But as you know, I'm only one person.
Right.
Randy's only one person.
Right.
Val's only one person. And
it takes a lot of people.
It takes a village
yeah.
to do a show.
On. Right.
And we have a lot of guys that like to come help, but getting them to dedicate
right.
that much time
right.
at it. And that's why we're trying, maybe, which I don't see why we won't be coming back in 2026, right. but we want to try to get a board of some sort.
Gotcha. And expand it a little bit. The thing is, it takes a lot of people because it is volunteer time. The other thing that happens is a lot of folks that get involved are also people that pull. So they've already got their summer schedule. And then you've got all these county fairs, and you got kids and neighbors and your own kids and grandkids and people showing and involved. So summer's busy for anybody involved in that sport. If you could go back and mark any one tractor pull that you pulled in that was your favorite, do you have one that comes to mind?
Well, I would actually say yes. That would have been our local home pull. They always say your hometown pull's the
right.
worst there ever was.
Right.
A few years, it was. But one year, I swept it. I won every class. Either first, second, or third.
Wow. It's just one of them years it all come together for you.
And I don't know, I still, today, even in my article I wrote in here about my pulling, I still, today, feel when I pull back to that sled, I hear the clunk of that chain. I still know my dad's watching down upon me when I'm driving that tractor. And I know he'd be proud of me today from what I've become.
Right.
From, just being a guy that bought a piece of junk to where it is today. I know it's in a million pieces down there, but hopefully next year it'll be back out.
Right. Well, we talk about tractor pulling as a family sport all the time, and it was no different for you. You mentioned the Carroll family was no different for them. It's no different for myself, and we see that happen over and over. What if somebody's new to this sport, since you promote tractor pulls, what are some of the reasons that you would say people should come out and just watch it at least once and and see what it's, because we see a change in just our ag economy with, there's larger farms, less farm kids. And how do we keep the excitement and the involvement? And I guess what's a reason you would challenge people to come out and take a look and see how this works?
Well, if you got any background of farm equipment,
right,
or far as motorsports, it doesn't matter what division it is. If you like speed, you like the sound of a motor,
right,
you like competition,
right.
It's nice to see somebody that you may know,
right,
or somebody that you've heard of in the past go out and compete against each other.
Right.
And it doesn't matter. I know it's kind of getting to be more the red and the green nowadays.
Right.
But if you go back to where I'm at, you got all makes and models.
Right.
Everybody's out there competing against each other.
And the thing with you guys have to run like stock blocks, right? You can modify some things past that, but
you can modify the insides,
but you have to stay with the stock
You
block.
got to have a stock appearing block,
right,
and head. But internally, it can be anything.
And that's part of one thing that you bring up a good point, just so for the audience to understand that. One reason I think you're seeing a lot of division anymore, and it kind of comes down to Case IH or International and John Deere, is when you start running the others just because of how far these engines are being pushed. And I've been corrected on this, but many of them, if they're not red or green, they're using a Cummins. Not all of them.
Not all of them,
but many are. And the problem is because the way some of those were designed, they don't maybe have the main bearings and things to hold the cranks, maybe not designed to take certain amount of pressure. And of course, you're getting even into those, you're getting into billet blocks and cranks at certain levels. But I want to ask you a question about your father working at a Massey dealership for, well over 30 years. Did he see some input from the factory into these pulling tractors? Like you were talking about that 2805. Was that something that the farmer was like, no, we're going to take this thing and compete? Or did Massey Ferguson itself get involved and try to figure out how it could push and develop things?
They helped a little, but they didn't back quite as much like, International or John Deere,
right.
but still they wanted to get that big V8 out
there, right.
Which not only those, they had the 354 Perkins,
right.
which is the 6th.
Right.
Which would run.
That was a good running motor.
Which would run against the 6-cylinder.
Right.
But
because that was even the thing with John Deere and International, there was factory involvement, but it was usually through another channel because, where you get into racing cars, you got Chevrolet, Ford,
and that's true.
All those that really get behind it. With the ag equipment, for whatever reason, they decided to try to kind of stay more in the shadows of it because of liability, I guess. But I didn't know if he's seen some of that or not. It's just interesting.
Like I say, he helped with some of that.
Yeah.
With a few tractors around, and he didn't do a whole lot of work with them, but he followed them and
knew what was going on.
Did a lot of throwing weights for people or give them moral support.
Right.
And say like I was talking a while ago about the Barry, Donald Barry. Okay. You might know of the name Gary Seidenstricker.
Yes.
Gary Seidenstricker was well known for the Cajun Queens.
Right.
Him and Van Bokkens.
Right.
Okay. Don and them lived within 20 miles of each other.
Oh, okay.
Don lived in Thompson, Missouri, which was
a
suburb, kind of like here, Kelowna is to Iowa City.
Right, just outside.
So
they
were from Mexico, and Donald was from there. So, they had a lot, and the Massey dealer was in Mexico, which they had a lot of their mechanics helping Don with that tractor, which Don started back in the way years with a Super 90, which is like a 318 Perkins.
Right.
He started with that, and then he went up to 1100, 1130, and then the 1150.
I'm going to throw a little plug out here. If anybody can connect me with the Seidenstricker family, I've gotten some numbers, but I've not gotten good response. So if you can get me to sit down and connect me, and we can talk about it off camera.
I got all kinds of connections with a lot of people.
But I want to get that family on, because the Cajun Queen and the Cajun Queen 2 were very iconic in their day, and they did a lot to promote the brand of John Deere in the Midwest, and so it was very interesting to all the stories I hear about what they did.
But there wasn't only those two.
Well, right, there were others that they built that ended up at other places and campaigned all over the place.
You had the Midnight Special, and the Queenie, which they were from Paris, Missouri, which is right north of there. Right. Which I got connections with those guys, some of them people.
So, but we talked about highlights that you had. What's something you'd do over a regret you've had in tractor pulling? Something you can share with us. I don't want you to share anything that's maybe personal.
Oh no, I haven't got anything to hide. I'm wide open about everything. I don't regret anything I've done. And
no opportunities you missed that you should have taken?
There's probably was. I wish, at one time, Dad was going to build a 354. For pro stock. If I hadn't have moved up to Iowa and got away from there, who knows? We may have had a tractor.
Right.
But that's the only thing. But still, it's the point of woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Right. What's something you'd like the audience to know about you, or about maybe a cause that's close? I know we talked a little bit about, of course, St. Jude's and Shriners. What are some other things that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, actually, I haven't brought this up. I'm actually, as far as way the magazine come out, I'm actually the vice president of the Iowa Massey Collectors Association.
Okay.
Which I'm the vice president.
Okay.
And that's how, and if anybody wants to be a member of the Massey Collectors Association, they can contact me. I can give them, information on how to be a member.
Yep.
We've got a national chapter. You get a lot of benefits from that. And people will know a lot more about Massey stuff, like the magazine. The newsletters we put out and stuff has a lot of stuff about shows or mechanical things, or say stories. Like most of them I write, majority of them are about pulling and stuff like that. It's easy.
Is that part of this magazine then? Does that magazine come out of that organization or no?
Yes.
It does. Okay.
It does.
That's what I was thinking.
This is part of it.
Yeah.
Like for the Iowa chapter, it's $41 a year.
Okay.
You get this. You get voting rights for our show each year. You get banquets.
Right.
You get, we got to now we've got a national website.
Okay.
That all them guys can go to and find hard to find parts, paint numbers. If you're doing, old tractors or something, you can get the old numbers and stuff. And a lot of that stuff is in there. And like I say, if anybody needs anything, don't ever hesitate to contact me. I'll do my best to help you out. If I don't know it, I know somebody that does.
Right.
Or can lead you in the right direction.
Well, there's a family that pulls the Massey and ECI Association. I think they've had an issue finding a few parts, but I kind of helped direct them. But that was before I knew you. And I think hopefully they found what they need, because they're out running it yet. So, But no, and a lot of those parts are getting hard to find. The thing, I guess, of course, Breaking Barriers, our podcast is all about preserving history, and this is just a piece of it. The thing that I think is unique is, of course, a lot of times we interview people that pulled modifieds and super stocks and things like that. But if we go back to the beginning, really what you guys are doing is the grassroots of tractor pulling.
And that's where it is. We're still at it. As far as if I can explain this,
yeah,
you might see the name Poor Boy's Toy.
Okay.
Okay. There's a thing about that. When I had the tractor, I call it the Red Power Showdown. Well, Chuck Lee had the 686 International called Red Power Showdown. So when I sold the tractor to Dad, he's like, I can't have the same name as somebody else. All right. So Poor Boy's Toy come from, which I know you had a picture on your page here a while back. A guy named PC Long.
Yep.
Okay, PC called his the Mayor's Toy.
Yes.
So my dad, he's like, okay, we can't afford to pull super stocks. We're going to pull classics. So we're in the poor person's division. We're going to call it the Poor Boy's Toy.
Okay.
So that's where that name come from with this one. And the Moline, he called it the Old Yeller. Yep. So we, but that's where the name originated from.
Interesting. Well, I appreciate you coming down and taking the time and just coming down and sharing about it. This antique pulling, as we call it, is still very much a entry level. There's I don't know how many folks I interview that's how they started pulling tractors. I mean, the Ford brothers, the Piper brothers.
I've seen both
just
of those.
name them. And I'm missing others that get started that way. My first tractor pulls were just local, what we call brush pulls. Local pulls put on with a farm tractor. So. Thank you, James, for coming down.
Oh, well, yeah, anytime.
We'll put your information in. They'll be able to, and you can share this. So if people want to get a hold of you, they can, and appreciate that. So,
and like I say, if you ever, if you're wanting information on possibly doing a pull here in Iowa, an antique one or farm, either way, you can contact me and we can see if maybe we can. Me and my guy can work something out,
yeah.
or
okay.
It never hurts to try.
That's right.
As they always say, what's the most you're going to get is a no out of somebody.
And those happen every day. So thank you.
But I appreciate every time that I've contacted you numerous times, and if I like I say, if I get leads, I'm not hesitant to send you, hey, you need to contact this guy.
You do, and it's a lot of these folks, there's others that listen to send us names. I get calls and messages daily, and, some of them don't want to be on, so it's not that we don't try. Others are logistically, we got to put it together where it works for everyone. And so it's not like we're not listening, it's just it takes time to make all of it happen. And then you just have some folks that don't respond either, that don't want to. But
I know that one. You had Chris Dix on.
Yes.
Okay. He's the voice of the Iowa Antique Tractor Puller.
Right.
He does our state fair pull.
Right.
And
he's the announcer.
Yes.
For clarity's sake, yeah.
Yeah, he knows a lot about the old tractors, and we have another guy that comes from Illinois that originally was from Australia. He pulls a Massey Harris that come from Australia.
Right.
And he's one of our other announcers that we have there. I had him at my local county fair pull this year down in Missouri as well. So
yeah.
But it's all fun.
Yep, it is.
I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Right. Well, you meet some of the nicest people this way, so just want to thank you again for joining us on Breaking Barriers podcast here in the Breaking Barriers shop. We always love to hear your comments, your suggestions. If you have anything like that, send it out to us, and we love to hear from you, whether you like the content and what you'd like to see. Thank you for watching Breaking Barriers podcast.